Flaring tempers, massive busts, and dead wax. Plus this day in history with the assassination of a British Prime Minister and our Song of the Day by Shaky Graves on your Morning Monarchy for May 11th, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Welcome to wherever you are for another hour-long blast of listener-supported media. We are brought to you by you, and a huge thanks to all our supporters and donors and patrons. But you can find all that information at MediaMonarchy.com/support, PayPal, Patreon, the P.O. Box, and Bitcoin. If you can give a little, I can give a lot. And a huge thanks to our latest patron on Patreon, Fractured. They call themselves with a K. I like that. Huge thanks to Fractured for signing up for a generous monthly Patreon donation. And also a huge thanks to the Truth Seeker app and RadioConfluence.com. It's a couple seconds after 9 a.m. Pacific time, and we are coming to you, as always, from the best West Coast up here in Portland, Oregon. The rain is back. I feel a bit relieved, actually. I know some days we talk on Thursdays where it's all sunny and it doesn't feel right for a Holy Hexes day of news. But today it feels just perfect, a little gloomy, a little cloudy, and got a little chilly. It makes me feel good. I've been fighting a cold all this week, but feeling a little better, and each day feeling a little better. Getting rid of all them dust bunnies. We've rearranged the studio for a better layout, and we are prepping to go off of Mixlr. They're dropping the paywall on May 17th. And we've already got our own stream up and running, and I see people over there already right now. Huge thanks to you for checking out the new stream. You can find the links to that over at, as well, MediaMonarchy.com/listen. So as you may or may not know, each day of the week we go into a different area of news. Monday's World News, Tuesday is Cyberspace War, Wednesday is Food World Order, and Thursday is the dark and disturbing and not safe for work Holy Hexes. I got a barn burner for you today. Let's dispense with the rest of the formalities and just get to it, my friends. I'm glad you're here. I'm James Evan Pilato. This is MediaMonarchy.com. Let's glance at the breaking lamestream news. White House to launch a commission to study voter fraud and suppression. Lots of Congress critters going back to their constituents and getting yelled at. And here in Peak Portland, just continues to get out of hand. The cops killed somebody last night. They blew up some suspicious device, some suspicious suitcase yesterday at a pretty busy transit center. I believe there was also a stabbing as well. So Portland is pretty much over, and we're pretty much over it. But hope you're doing well wherever you are, my friends. And again, this is going to be a bad one. This is going to be a gruesome one. So put the kids away. Let's begin as it all does in Egypt. The Queen receives His Holiness Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria, and Patriarch of the See of St. Mark at Windsor Castle. Pretty amazing photo of those two meeting and greeting. Cassie basically said, they look like they both sit at desks too long. They get those hunched backs. And our friend Darren over in the UK, he's on the tweets at Daz Alt Theory. He notes it's always Egypt. And he even noted Isaiah 19:25. Lord Almighty will bless them, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, my handiwork, and Israel, my inheritance. That's how we set the stage here on your Holy Hexes edition of your Morning Monarchy. Tempers flare over removal of Confederate statues in New Orleans. This is in the breaking lamestream news headlines as well. For Malcolm Suber, the Confederate monument that dot this deep South city stands for white supremacy, pure and simple. Instead of just taking them down, Mr. Suber, African-American activist and organizer, would like to see the city pass out sledgehammers and let everybody take a whack, just like the Berlin Wall. For Frank B. Stewart Jr., a white New Orleans native, the city's government's plan to remove the statues, an idea championed by New Orleans white mayor Mitch Landrieu, feels like an Orwellian attempt to erase history. Last week, Mr. Stewart, 81, a businessman and civic leader, argued as much in a letter he published in a 2-page advertisement in The Advocate, the local newspaper, not the gay magazine. I ask you, Mitch, should the pyramids in Egypt be destroyed since they were built entirely from slave labor? What about the Roman Colosseum? It was built by slaves who lived horrible lives under Roman oppression, but it still stands today, and we learn so much from seeing it. Such are the irreconcilable parameters of an ugly battle over race and history in New Orleans that seems to only be growing uglier. One that demonstrates the Confederacy's enduring power to divide Americans more than 150 years after the cause was lost. Tempers flaring in Troll America. So angry about ideas and images, we just can't handle it. Surprise, surprise, another classic false flag, my friends. Racist note at Minnesota College was a hoax. A racist threat against a St. Olaf student. Yes, St. Olaf is the city that Betty White always talked about in Golden Girls. A racist threat against a St. Olaf student that touched off campus-wide protests and forced college to cancel classes earlier this month was a hoax, the school revealed yesterday. A student confessed to writing the note. St. Olaf president David R. Anderson wrote in a message to the student, the threat, an anonymous typewritten note, was fabricated as an apparent strategy to draw attention to concerns about the campus climate. This was not a genuine threat. We're confident that there's no ongoing threat from this incident to individuals or the community as a whole. The note, tucked under the windshield of a black student's car on April 29th, sparked outrage, fear, and hurt on this close-knit private college campus, about 45 miles south of the Twin Cities. The revelation that the note was a fake was a shock of a different sort. But it started a good conversation. You know, false flags can start good conversations. They can also start massive wars of aggression. On April 29th, St. Olaf senior Samantha Wells, who is black, posted images on social media of a threatening note she said she had found on her windshield. Wells was a featured speaker at campus rallies, tearfully relaying the discovery of the note and how unsafe it made her feel on campus. Now, this story goes on and on from the Star Tribune, but basically, when you break it down, she probably wrote the note herself, and whoops, she destroyed it. So nobody can check it, and she's not pressing charges. She doesn't want to further the investigation because it would probably point right back to her. Another classic false flag. We'll continue to expose all these bullshit, racist, phony-ass attacks. 9 times out of 10, they look to be false flag attacks. Antifa recruits witches. Now, I actually had a listener write me the other day, and they were saying, I heard you say once that Antifa was fake as fuck. And the more, they're kind of looking at their actions, it kind of seems that way. I was like, no, you maybe misunderstood me. I said Antifa was fa as fuck, as in fascist as fuck. I don't think they're fake, but like any kind of AstroTurf fake psyop, all it takes is a couple of real spooks to plant the seeds, and then the rest are all just suckers, all just lemmings following along. Sad part for them is they're not even on the payroll. They're just following along. So we go from that kind of mentality to the cult mentality. The man who runs Scientology treatment centers, with quotes around it, throughout Tennessee, and 2 of his employees were prosecuted after police found 2 people held against their will at one of his facilities. All facilities in Cannon County in Tennessee were closed, and 3 men were arrested in connection with the kidnappings. According to WZTV, deputies responded to a 911 call from the Sunshine Lane facility in early February and discovered a man in a cabin with no food or running water. The man claimed a caretaker prevented him from leaving and that he was assaulted. Authorities also alleged that a mentally handicapped woman was made to stay in a padlocked room for 14 hours a day. The Cannon Courier provided additional details about the victim's living conditions. Officers described the locked cabin where the man was living as having no obvious amenity for life, being completely barren aside from a pile of sheets in the corner. Authorities said the man claimed he was at the facility for 9 months and was given unknown medications during that time. So they basically claim to be Scientologists. But the Life Center is said to have no affiliation with the official church. The station pointed out that none of the 3 men are licensed healthcare professionals, because that makes it so much better, and that the self-proclaimed Scientologist used training learned through the church to open up his own treatment center. I had no idea what was going down there. You can't open a Scientology facility unless it's approved by the church. Church of Scientology Nashville pastor Reverend Brian Fessler commented, "It has nothing to do with our church. It's nothing we would be involved in any way." Mentally handicapped victim kept padlocked in a room at a Tennessee quote-unquote Scientology quote-unquote treatment center. And the cults go on, my friends. Evangelist and cult leader Tony Alamo, who died 2 Tuesdays ago in a prison hospital in North Carolina, was a curiosity to many people before he was a criminal and lived much of his life in the headlines. Tony Alamo was born Bernie Lazar Hoffman on September 20th, 1934 in Joplin, Missouri. His father was a Jewish immigrant from Romania who, Alamo claims, had been a dance instructor for Rudolph Valentino. According to the Encyclopedia of Arkansas History and Culture, when he was a teenager, Alamo left Joplin for the West Coast. He apparently adopted the name Marcus Abad for some time and achieved some modicum of success as a big band crooner in L.A. Alamo, who went on to own a health club and work in the music industry. These are all fantastic areas, right? Filled with amazing, wonderful people. Healthcare and the showbiz industry. It's hard to find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. He claimed that he recorded a hit single in the early 60s, Little Yankee Girl, and that he was asked to manage musical acts like, the Beatles and the Doors and the Stones. In 66, after serving jail time for a weapons charge, Alamo married Edith Opal Horn from Alma, Arkansas in Crawford County. 9 years his senior, Horn was a two-time divorcee who had moved to Hollywood to become an actress, but ended up supporting herself by scamming churches into believing she was a missionary in need of money. Some sources say they changed their names to Tony and Susan Alamo after getting married, but Tony Alamo has claimed that he changed his own name earlier to mimic the Italian-American singers who were popular at the time. So this is a long, strange story, and even the article from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette titles itself The Strange Life and Demise of Tony Alamo. Now, we've been Media Monarchy since September 11th, 2005. And we had a YouTube account pretty much as soon as they started. One of my oldest YouTube videos, and it's still to this day, anytime you see, the dates on YouTube videos. I mean, it's barely 11 years old. When you see things on YouTube, it says uploaded 10 years ago. Wow. I have a video, one of my oldest, on my YouTube channel. Going back 8 years ago. Former Tony Alamo church member speaks out.
A former member of the Alamo Ministries is speaking out about what he saw during his time in church. He accuses the church leader of keeping him from his 3 children.
KSLA News 12's Jonathan McCall is live tonight in the studio with details on that. Jonathan?
Pat and Shannon, back in 1996, Anthony Lane says the Alamo church kicked him out with only $10 and a bus ticket, but he left something behind that is priceless to him, his 3 children.
A man that arranges marriages of little girls. He orders beatings of little children.
These are only a couple of events Anthony Lane says he witnessed during his 2-month stay at the Tony Alamo Ministries back in 1996 before being kicked out of the church and out of the lives of his 3 children he hasn't seen since.
Well, to tell you the truth, first I was just totally devastated. I felt like I'd lost any reason to live. Didn't have no reason to live. In fact, I was suicidal.
Lane was kicked out of the church after he says he questioned Alamo's teachings, and after a while he found help and support through a group known as PACA, or Partnered Against Cult Activities.
Well, anyway, PACA started giving me good counsel about what steps I should take and looking for telephone numbers and the right people that I should call.
Such as lawyers who Lane says he's been working with to help him get custody of his kids from his wife, who is still a member of the church. But he says it's not easy.
It is very heartbreaking, but it's heartbreaking on all of them because I don't know none of my kids.
Lane says he's not sure if he will ever see his 2 daughters, 13-year-old Ashley and 11-year-old Sarah, ever again. But he says he won't stop trying to prevent them from becoming another victim of Tony Alamo.
It's hard to get somebody served and take them to court when they keep moving around and hiding from you deliberately.
Now Lane says he is looking into whether or not his daughters are among 6 girls taken from the compound during the raid this past Saturday. This afternoon, KSLA News 12 contacted Tony Alamo for a comment regarding the allegations made against him, but we were told he was unavailable. We're live tonight in the studio. Jonathan McCall, KSLA News 12.
Remember the Alamo. That's one of the oldest videos on my YouTube channel. Former Tony Alamo church member speaks out, and you can even see some of the comments about the newsreaders' hand signals there. A little bit of NLP, perhaps? You're listening to The Morning Monarchy for May 11th. I'm James Evan Pilato. Seattle Mayor Ed Murray said Tuesday he will not run for a second term as he fights claims that he sexually abused teenage boys in the 80s. Murray, who was expected to win the upcoming mayoral race, dropped out days before the official filing deadline. In April, a man filed a lawsuit accusing Murray of sexually abusing him in '86 when he was a homeless 15-year-old. Another man's come forward accusing Murray of paying him for sex when he was a teenager, according to a declaration filed in the earlier case. 2 other men told the Seattle Times Murray abused them when they were teenagers living in Portland in the 80s. Murray made the announcement at Seattle's scenic Alki Beach, where he grew up and quickly left without taking questions. He forcefully said the allegations against him are not true. The scandal surrounding them hurts me in this city. Murray, who served in the legislature before becoming mayor, ran through some of his accomplishments and said politics has been my life. Murray said he remembers going door to door with his mother campaigning for John F. Kennedy. It tears me to pieces to step away. He said he will serve out his term, which ends December 31st. Embattled Seattle mayor will not seek second term, and we've been following that story here for you here week in, week out on Media Monarchy. And again, you can help us follow these stories and submit stories using the tweets. Today's hashtag is Holy Hexes. And again, if you don't use the tweets, no biggie, you can always email me, james@MediaMonarchy.com. I'm on Skype, I'm on Wire, any number of ways to get in touch with me. I'm pretty accessible. I think actually some people go, didn't think you'd be so accessible. It is a dark one, and we're only 15 minutes in, my friend, and it's going to get a lot darker. The petition's calling for a local radio station in southern Arizona to be shut down after it was revealed that for the past 2 years, its manager aired a public service announcement giving advice on how to hide child pornography. Cochise County Sheriff's Office is investigating KAVV Radio, also known as The Cave, over an announcement which is aired late at night and in the early morning hours with advice on how to hide child pornography. The announcement was authored by station manager Paul Lotsoff, Lotsof, who says he's exercising free speech to protest Arizona's draconian laws. Please take notice that the PSA in question does not condone child pornography in any way, Lotsoff told KPHO and KTVK-TV. It merely points out that the penalties for possession of child pornography are draconian, to the extent that the real victims are the people serving these incredibly long sentences. Wow. In the words of Bill Hicks, excuse me, giant balls coming through. The information in the announcement is perfectly accurate and important, he added. It has, however, been taken off the air. The PSA told Cave listeners to hide your child pornography from your computer by keeping all content on an external hard drive and hide it where no one can find it. Carol Kappas, spokeswoman for the sheriff's office, told the Arizona Republic. The advice included, among other things, never keep paper pictures, tapes, or films of naked juveniles where anyone else can find them, according to the text of the PSA that Lotsoff provided to the local media. It's very disturbing to have that type of message go out from a media organization that in essence is providing instructions on how to break a law, specifically something as heinous as any type of child porn. You shouldn't have someone advising you, if you're going to do this, this is how to get away with it. That's pretty stunning. I guess my question is, and as a media person, and we're grabbing this story from RT, does anybody people have recordings of this? I don't know that I necessarily want or need that, but I'm generally in the interest of full exposure. Somebody can reply to that tweet. Hey, and again, we publish all the headlines we're going to talk about. We put them up on Twitter about an hour before showtime. So if you're listening live and you want to know what we're talking about, if you want to follow the stories, they're all right there for you, my friends. Speaking of hard drives and speaking of stories not getting a lot of attention, we go to the Philippines. And this story from the AP is, I can really only find in places like the Japan Times. The suspected pedophile could see people banging on his front door, but were they neighbors? Cops? One had letters on her jacket. As David Timothy Deacon Googled, "What is NBI?" from his laptop on his bed, the Philippines National Bureau of Investigation smashed their way into his cyber sex den. Children's underwear, toddler shoes, cameras, bondage cuffs, meth pipes, and stacks of hard drives cluttered the stuffy two-bedroom townhouse. Penciled on the wall, somebody had scrawled, "My mom and dad love me." In his computer were videos and images of young boys and girls engaged in sex acts. "Why is everybody asking about children coming into my house?" says Deacon, 53, bare-chested and slick with sweat, his breath sour and glasses foggy, his wrists bound with a zip tie. Deacon's arrest on 4/20, April 20th, reveals one of the darkest corners of the internet where pedophiles in the U.S., Europe, and elsewhere pay facilitators in the Philippines to sexually abuse children, even babies, directing their moves through online live streaming services. This relatively new crime, webcam sex tourism, is spreading rapidly. The United Nations describes alarming growth of new forms of child sexual exploitation online. The FBI says it's epidemic and that at any given moment, 750,000 child predators are online. Almost every case stems from the Philippines, where good English speakers, increased internet connections, and widespread international cash transfer systems combined with widespread poverty and easy access to vulnerable kids. There have been as many as 3 busts a week there this spring. The youngest victim ever rescued a few weeks ago was an infant 2 months old. Most are about 12 years old. Authorities arrest a suspected American, David Timothy Deacon, and he watches as agents go through all his stuff, trying to find hidden computer files. They have rubber gloves on, touching his mouse and computer. Children's underwear, bondage cuffs, meth pipes, routers, cameras, jean shorts, whips and chains, computers, stacks of hard drives, photo albums clutter his townhouse.
That's more the hard drive.
Webcam tourism is pervasive in the Philippines, where we just noted. This footage is pretty gruesome.
This should serve them as a warning. We will really catch them with the help of our foreign counterparts. We will really put them in jail, and surely they will die in jail.
Online sexual exploitation is possibly the most evil thing that I've seen so far, because really it involves young kids and also the parents or the relatives exploiting and exposing their kids. That's unimaginable for me.
The AP visited a shelter for sexual exploitation survivors. Cassie said that her abusers told foreigners online that she was 18. In reality, she was 12.
I'm starting working as cybersex model in front of the camera. I was working, waking me up in the morning like 4 just to say hi to the customer, because there's a customer want to send some money, so he needs some girl to show his whole body in front of the camera.
Her roommates are at the shelter she calls home. They're mostly also victims of cybersex. Parents and relatives turn to online exploitation as a way to make easy money.
It's a myth for some of them that nothing is wrong. That anyway, these children are not physically touched, and that the perpetrators are actually overseas, so they're not here. So for them, this is normal, and this is the easiest way to earn money.
International law enforcement agents are trying to support a Filipino crackdown. Hoping arrests and tough prosecutions will discourage many more would-be abusers. The FBI calls sexual exploitation an epidemic, and as we noted, at any moment, 750,000 online. Discussions in the chat about that essentially house of evil. A lot of bad vibes for the next tenant, but also note that it should be demolished. But a lot of times we don't demolish houses of evil. We sometimes turn them into museums. We got that coming up a little bit later on this episode. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy for Thursday, May 11th, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com, giving you a dark look at the underbelly of the world we call holy hexes. A Roman Catholic nun from Japan has been arrested and charged on suspicion of helping priests sexually abuse children at a school for youths with hearing disabilities in Argentina. Kosaka Kumiko, 42, was charged with helping the priest with anal and vaginal rapes, fondling, and oral sex, which were allegedly committed in the bathrooms, dormitories, gardens, and a basement at the school in Luján de Cuyo, a city about 620 miles northwest of Buenos Aires. The case against Kumiko began after a former student accused her of making her wear a diaper to cover up a hemorrhage after she was allegedly raped by priest Horacio Corbacho. "I'm innocent," she told judicial officials, who ordered her to be taken into custody at a local women's prison while detectives investigate that alleged crimes. The nun, who has Argentine citizenship, has also been charged with physically abusing other students whose torments could only be heard by those abusing them since the other children were deaf. at the Antonio Provolo Institute for Children with Hearing Impairment in northwestern Mendoza province. But she denied any wrongdoing during an 8-hour court hearing late last Thursday. She was being shown led by police in handcuffs and wearing her nun's habit and a bulletproof vest. Fetching combination. At least 24 students from the Provolo Institute have come forward to accuse Corbacho, fellow priest Nicola Corradi, and 3 other men. Angel from hell, they're calling her. That's a nun arrested for helping priests sexually abuse deaf children. And then that brings us back here to the States with another story about another nun and another church and another round of abuse. And we go to that seamy underbelly that somehow gets the name Charm City. It's Baltimore. And we're asking the question, who killed Sister Kathy?
Hello, everyone. I'm Vic Carter.
And I'm Denise Koch, and here's what people are talking about tonight. A major development in the murder case of a young Baltimore nun. Nearly 50 years ago, the body of Sister Kathy Sesnick was found in a ditch. Now, for months, we have been investigating this case that has haunted the community. Tonight, a WJZ exclusive, Baltimore County Police have dug up the body of a powerful priest long suspected in Sister Kathy's death to get his DNA. January 1970, the decomposed body of 26-year-old Sister Kathy Sesnick is discovered in a field in Lansdowne. A recent WJZ investigation reveals Sister Kathy was about to blow the whistle on widespread sexual abuse at the hands of Father Joseph Maskell at Archbishop Keough High School. Nearly 50 years later, police are now focusing on that powerful priest.
Maskell was a suspect in the murder of Sister Kathy.
Many of Maskell's victims, including Teresa Lancaster, have told WJZ they went to Sister Kathy, telling her about Maskell's abuse right before she was killed.
She confronted him, and she lost her life for it.
When WJZ first began investigating the murder of Sister Kathy, we discovered Baltimore County Police were once again conducting interviews in the case. What's more, the Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office authorized police to dig up the body of Father Maskell, who died in 2001. They have taken his DNA. And although there's very little physical evidence left to compare it to, they're hoping, as are so many others, this might help answer the question, who killed Sister Kathy?
We've been looking at this case intensely for a while, and there was absolutely no question that in leaving no stone unturned, looking at Maskell's DNA and comparing it to that physical evidence was absolutely something that we had to do.
Now, police tell WJZ it will take 4 to 6 weeks before they know if Maskell's DNA matches the evidence. Maskell denied the accusations against him until his death in 2001. WJZ will continue to investigate this story. We will bring you every development.
On November 7th, 1969, Sister Kathy Sesnick, Catholic nun and popular school teacher at a Baltimore high school, went missing. 2 months later, her body was found in a dump 5 miles from her home with a blow to the back of her skull. The murderer was never found. Now, a new Netflix documentary series, The Keepers, picks up the case, speaking to dozens of Sister Kathy's friends, former students, and people who for nearly 50 years have tried to uncover what happened, who's responsible, and why the truth has never been revealed.
Baltimore has always been a quintessentially Catholic city.
The priests were the authority. Whatever they told you to do, you did.
The city has its level of corruption. Sister Kathy exemplified this spirit of compassion and kindness.
I have never had a teacher like that before. She was murdered our senior year, and it's always haunted many people in the community. Our mission, we were driven to find out who hurt Sister Kathy.
People pop up from 45, 50 years ago who say, I have a story I'd like to tell you.
I believe Kathy Sesnick was killed because she was going to talk about what went on at Keough.
There's an on-the-record public story of what happened to Sister Kathy, and then there's the world beneath.
The
police department, and the state could provide protection for the priest.
There were other people brought in, local business owners, politicians that were part of this network.
I can testify that over 100 victims have been abused.
Time is getting short for us to be able to figure out what happened to Kathy.
My father said to my mother, "You want to know why I drink? Because we killed a woman and we put her behind the shop."
He said, "You see what happens when you say bad things about people?"
This goes bigger and deeper than we can imagine. The story is not the nun's killing. The story is the cover-up of the nun's story.
The alternative media, Jerry. That's where you hear the truth.
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato.
You are listening to The Morning Monarchy for Thursday, May 11th, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com, giving you a dark look we call Holy Hexes. As noted in the chat, it's almost like all the procedural police shows with fake crimes just isn't doing it for people anymore. We want true crime. And look at all the other things. Making a Murderer, Serial, that podcast. These can be positive things if they actually investigate real underbelly shit. Now, will they actually turn their views again to the powers that shouldn't be? We're halfway there, my friends. We can do it. We can make it through this. So we head on down to Mississippi. Goddamn. Experts believe that up to 7,000 bodies from Mississippi's first lunatic asylum, built in 1855, are buried under what is now the University of Mississippi Medical Center campus. The bodies are former patients and stretches across 20 acres of land under the university campus, which is earmarked for future construction. Experts used ground-penetrating radar to make the extraordinary find. The graves were first discovered in 2013 when construction crews working on a new road project unearthed 66 unmarked graves on the campus, leading researchers to further survey the sites. Later, in 2015, during work on a campus parking garage, a further 1,000 bodies were discovered, and shortly after, another 1,000 were found just north of the construction site. Following further surveying, experts believe that the total number of bodies under the campus is closer to 7,000. The University of Mississippi, or Ole Miss, now has a plan to exhume and rebury each body and create a memorial to the dead, along with a visitor center and a laboratory which would be used to study the remains and clothes and coffins from the period. The project, however, comes at a hefty price. Initially, it was thought that the cost of exhuming and reburying each corpse would be $3,000, taking the total to a staggering $21 million. Now the university is looking at another plan at a cost of $400,000 for at least 8 years, bringing that to a substantially less $3.2 million. The Mississippi State Lunatic Asylum, later renamed the Mississippi State Insane Hospital, was the brainchild of Civil War nurse Dorothea Dix, D-I-X. She strove for better conditions for the nation's mentally ill patients who, up until then, had been jailed and shunned by wider society. The institution operated from 1855 to 1935 when it was moved to the present site of the Mississippi State Hospital. Construction didn't begin on the university's medical center until almost 2 decades later, with Ole Miss opening its doors to its first students in 1955. So they're exhuming that old priest's body in the case of who killed Sister Kathy. We even reported for you recently, they're exhuming the body of President James K. Polk. Digging him up and moving him around. You moved the headstones, but you left the bodies, didn't you? We continue to ask the questions of who did it?
The mysterious death of a prominent New York judge remains unsolved as an investigation continues after her body was found floating in the Hudson. On April 12th, just 6 days before Sheila Abdus-Salaam, the first black woman to serve on New York's highest court, was expected to speak at Columbia Law School, her alma mater, her body was discovered in the water without obvious signs of trauma. The New York Police Department said this week that it still found no signs of foul play, suggesting she may have killed herself. However, a police official called the deaths suspicious, and the NYPD have asked for information from anyone who may have come in recent contact with Abdus-Salaam.
And the update, the NYPD has closed the investigation into the death of Justice Sheila Abdus-Salaam, saying she likely committed suicide, Chief Robert Boyce said 2 Wednesdays ago. Abdus-Salaam was the first African-American woman on the New York Court of Appeals. Her body was found washed up on the shore of the Hudson River in early April. Unable to locate any witnesses, police relied on security videos to try and retrace the last hours of Abdus-Salaam's life. She spent her work weeks in the city at an apartment on West 134th Street in Harlem. After staying home from work, on April 11th, she was seen on video leaving the home around 8:30 p.m. and walking several blocks north, then eventually west on West 144th to an elevated park on the Hudson River, where a final video shows her alone there at about 12:30 a.m. Her body was found in the water about 13 hours later without obvious signs of trauma. She was in the same clothes, sweatshirt, sweatpants, and white sneakers seen in the videos. 65-year-old Abdus-Salaam was raised with 6 siblings in a working-class family in Washington. She graduated from Barnard College before attending Columbia Law School, where she was on a committee organizing 40th class reunion for June. So this report from Pix 11 out of New York said they closed the investigation. This is from May 3rd. Results of an autopsy are still pending. Digging up bones. Exhuming things that's better left alone. They appear on the sand like any piece of sea detritus. Sometimes they're found amid the candy wrappers and cracked shells by volunteers cleaning up the area. Other times, a vacationer might glimpse the grisly discard from the corner of her eye, a serene walk along the beach interrupted just like that. As more people learned about these discoveries, they attracted morbid scavengers to the Pacific Northwest shorelines, where the Salish Sea connects waterways along the west coast of the United States and Canada. What these scavengers sought remains a prickling curiosity. Severed feet attached to running shoes, washed up from unknown origins. 16 of these detached human feet have been found since 2007 in British Columbia, Canada, and Washington state. Most of these have been right feet. All of them have worn running shoes or hiking boots. 3 New Balances, 2 Nikes, and an Ozark Trail. The most recent one turned up in 2016. Charlotte Stevens of British Columbia was taking a walk with her family on Vancouver Island, the CBC reported, when her husband spotted something in the sand. It was a shoe, which they could see right away, but a closer inspection revealed something more. It's a shoe with a foot still in it. And that's not the only one. That had been happening in the Pacific Northwest, and as I said, the most recent one last year in 2016. Now, last week, in Charleston, South Carolina, after a shoe with a human foot inside turned up on a dock in Charleston, South Carolina, investigators are trying to figure out whose it was and how it got there. A police report says a woman told Charleston City Marina employees on Monday that the shoe had been sitting on the dock for nearly a week, and it appeared to have a bone sticking out of the top. The foot, wearing a black sock, was inside the teal-colored size 9 Adidas sneakers. Charleston County Coroner Ray Wooten says her investigators are checking records of boating accidents and missing people, but haven't linked any records with the foot. These all sound strangely specific. They're all right feet. And I would say that since they all have running shoes or hiking shoes, that's what they were out doing. Meanwhile, 18 students at the fantastic learning institution known as Penn State were charged last Friday in the death of a 19-year-old sophomore who became drunk and fell repeatedly during a fraternity pledge night in February. Authorities said the student was left overnight unconscious, obviously injured by fraternity members who knew he needed help but failed to seek it. 8 of the students were charged with involuntary manslaughter, as was the fraternity itself, the Penn State chapter of Beta Theta Pi. The other 10 face lesser charges, including hazing and furnishing alcohol to minors. Prosecutors also contend the fraternity brothers tampered with evidence to try and thwart the investigation. The February 4th death of Timothy Piazza, an engineering student from Lebanon, New Jersey, rocked the Penn State campus. University President Eric Barron barred the fraternity from the university and imposed strict new regulations on Greek life, including a prohibition on liquor, kegs, and all-day parties. 18 Penn State students charged in fraternity deaths. As long as we're in the area, a doctor in western Pennsylvania who was trying to talk his despondent daughter into checking herself into a local hospital reportedly lost his life instead. Now police say they've uncovered the bizarre movie-inspired motive in the daughter's alleged violent, fatal stabbing of her father. According to TribLive.com, the 27-year-old daughter, Christina Nicasio of Allegheny County, is accused of stabbing her father to death over the weekend in his home. She later allegedly told the police she was reenacting a scene from the movie The Mummy Returns when she killed her dad. Dr. Anthony Nicasio, 69, died of multiple stab wounds to his chest inside his upscale Plum, Pennsylvania home around 3:30 a.m. And the headline from Penn Live, bizarre movie motive for Pennsylvania woman accused of stabbing her dad to death. Towards the end of the article, she says, I got played by Hollywood. In a movie, someone who can't love someone else, they stabbed their father. She told the police the movie was The Mummy's Return. The Mummy Returns. Sorry. Get my movies wrong. And we talk about, do we tear these places down? Do we just dump the body in the sea and never tell anybody so you can't make a martyr out of it? Or do you turn it into a bizarre museum? Well, as we head down to Florida, they're opting for Bizarre Museum.
Site of the worst mass shooting in U.S. history in Orlando will soon become a memorial and museum. The owner of the Pulse nightclub announcing today she is ready to take the next step. As our Ryan Raish reports tonight, there are some big names already opening their wallets.
The owner of the Pulse nightclub wants this to be a destination, and in some ways it already is. People come from around the country and leave signs, pictures, they write their names and just take it all in.
It's part of us.
For the survivors and the victims' families,
crime every day.
This building represents the worst night of their lives, the night hate tried to conquer love.
We will not let hate win.
But almost 1 year later, owner of the Pulse nightclub, Barbara Poma, is announcing it's time to turn the page. It's time to permanently honor the 49 victims and the hundreds of survivors and heroes, and tell the story with the kind of love that surrounds the building today.
Exciting is not the right word. The right word is empowering and inspiration, and that's what today was for all of us, I think.
Poma has now started a nonprofit, One Pulse Foundation. The sole purpose, build and maintain a memorial and museum on these grounds that tend to take your breath away.
You know, you go to a memorial to mourn and to pay your respect, and you go to a museum to learn.
The foundation already has an incredible lineup of supporters, locally and from Hollywood, including names like Coldplay, Lady Gaga, and Richard Branson.
You know, Hollywood has the platform to be a global voice. They're recognized names, recognized figures.
How this site will take shape is up to the people involved, and everyone has their own opinion.
I would say keep that sign up, the Pulse sign, but bring down the building.
The end goal is to make this a destination, much like the 9/11 Memorial in New York. The foundation won't say how much money it has raised so far, but organizers say it could take years to get this right.
Even if a small percent come, as we see them come here to the site every day still, that's a lot of people, and we need a very special place for that.
The next step in this process is to get feedback from survivors, victims' families, and the community. It's going to be up to them on how this memorial will look, or if that building will even stay standing. Reporting in Orlando, Ryan Raish, ABC Action News.
Illuminati super friends unite. Richard Branson, Lady Gaga, Coldplay, corporate whores, all of them. Finally, on this pretty dark episode of Holy Hexes for your Morning Monarchy, I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. When it first made headlines in 2010, Jason Leach's UK-based company And Vinylly, which presses the ashes of the deceased into vinyl records for loved ones wishing to hold on to their memory, appeared to be something of a macabre novelty. But there might be more to preserving the departed, quite literally on records, than first meets the eye and ear. Hearing Madge explores how Leach's venture was given new meaning when he was approached by a man looking to save his mother's recollections that he had recorded shortly before her death. Surprisingly touching, Andrea Lewis's short documentary, Hearing Madge, is both a profile of an unusual business and a thought-provoking contemplation of the ways we choose to remember the dead.
My name's Jason. I grew up hearing a story about my great-grandfather's ashes being scattered at sea, and the wind blew and they ended up having to sweep him off the deck. And then when my grandfather died, we went out into the Solent and my uncle scattered the ashes over the side, and the wind blew again, and I actually got an eyeful. That won't be happening with me, because I press human ashes after they've been cremated into vinyl records. Sort of came up with, well, what would I want to do? It was really more like a way of getting used to the idea of it, and I kind of took it on as a bit of a joke. And with a friend of mine, Stu, he helped me put the website together. Well, I don't know why, Stu, but Seymour Road's shut. How do we get to Barry's Lane? Can you go up this road here?
Where's Barry's Lane? Is it next left?
Barry's Lane's, it's just down there. It's just down there, a couple on the left. Oh, right, okay, so can we go down there then? Yeah, thanks.
It's past the stadium.
I just love sounds. I think audio sounds are much better than photographs. A lot of the music that I do is based on sounds that I hear around me. Even just, hearing your own little sniff, or you hear something happening in the background which brings loads of memories back. So that was probably part of what made the concept come about.
That's just the first couple of minutes of Hearing Madge, and you can find that entire short film, as well as everything we've just talked about, all in the show notes, my friends, including that brand new episode of New World Next Week, just published earlier this morning. New tech in New York City to track the homeless. And all that media is brought to you by you, my friends. There you have it. And finally, your Holy Hexes episode. We're going to go out with brand new music, appropriately enough, from Shaky Graves. But first, let's look at this day in history, May 11th, 1310. In France, 54 members of the Knights Templar are burned at the stake as heretics. 1792, Captain Robert Gray becomes the first documented white person to sail into the Columbia River. And on May 11th, 1812, in London, Spencer Perceval, Prime Minister of Britain since 1809, is shot to death by demented businessman John Bellingham in the lobby of the House of Commons.
My name's Andrew Linklater, and this is my new book, Why Spencer Perceval Had to Die. And the answer really is in the subtitle. It's the assassination of a British Prime Minister. And in fact, Spencer Perceval is the only British Prime Minister to have been killed. 200 years ago, this year, he was walking into the lobby of the House of Commons, and a large, well-dressed man walked up to him, drew out a stubby pistol, and shot a bullet, 1/2 inch in diameter across, enormous bullet, and it crashed into his chest and killed poor Perceval immediately. And there was no doubt who had done it. His name was John Bellingham, the murderer, and he waited to be captured. And when he was asked why he had done it, he was quite definite. He said, "I shot him as a matter of justice." And everyone concluded that he was mad. And history has rather agreed and has said that Spencer Perceval was killed by a deranged businessman, and it's become really one of the most obscure little episodes in British history. It's a pub quiz. What's the name of the only British Prime Minister to have been assassinated? Spencer Perceval.
On this day, May 11th, 1812. Furthermore, on this day in history, May 11th, 1846, the recently exhumed President James K. Polk asked for a declaration of war against Mexico, starting the Mexican-American War. It gets approved 2 days later. 1891, Tsarevich Nicholas Androvovich of Imperial Russia, later Nicholas II, suffers a critical head injury during a sword attack by Japanese businessman Suda Sanzo. He's rescued by Prince George of Greece and Denmark. 1927, AMPAS is founded, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. 1949, Israel joins the United Nations. 1960, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, 4 Israeli Mossad agents capture fugitive Nazi Adolf Eichmann on this day, who's living under the alias Ricardo Clement. On this day in 1970, the triple album Woodstock was released on Cotillion Records. And in 1972, John Lennon appeared on the Dick Cavett TV show and said that the FBI had been tapping his phone. That same day, 1972, May 11th, the United States performed a nuclear test at Nevada Test Site, which was part of the series Operation Grommet and Operation Toggle. 1973, citing government misconduct, Daniel Ellsberg's charges for his involvement in releasing the Pentagon Papers to the New York Times are dismissed. May 11th, 1981, Bob Marley dies from some strange fast-acting cancer that he seemed to get after a routine trip to the hospital and a soccer injury. May 11th, 1987, Klaus Barbie goes on trial in Lyon for war crimes committed during World War II. On this day in 1996, the Mount Everest disaster. On a single day, 8 people died during summit attempts on Mount Everest. And on this day in 97, Deep Blue, the chess-playing supercomputer, defeats Garry Kasparov in the last game of the rematch, becoming the first computer to beat a world champion chess player in a classic match format. Published in Media Monarchy a decade ago today, Bush changes continuity plan. White House, not DHS, would run the shadow government. The order makes explicit that the focus of federal worst-case planning involves a covert nuclear attack against the nation's capital, in contrast with Cold War assumptions that a long-range strike would be preceded by a notice of minutes or hours as missiles were fueled and launched. Also published in Media Monarchy a decade ago today, full-scale mock terror exercises May 10th through the 11th. 10th through the 18th, rather, 2007. Vigilant Guard. Argent Century. Escape from Iran inside a CIA covert op. Americans review Bush knowledge of 9/11. From the Angus Reid polls. And Chinese state TV replaced with anti-regime slogans and a little bit of hacking. Those articles and more published in Media Monarchy a decade ago today. Celebrating birthdays on May 11th, Denver Pyle, born on this day in 1920. You might know him as Jesse Duke, the father figure on Dukes of Hazzard. It's also Mort Saul's birthday. He's still kicking it. I've got one of his LPs. The Future Lies Ahead. It's also Louis Farrakhan's birthday. Allman Brothers drummer, Butch Trucks. We just lost him recently. Born on this day. It's also Jeremy Paxman's birthday from the BBC, Warren Littlefield from NBC, and director and producer Dan Ireland, who I've actually just been watching a little bit of on my current favorite YouTube channel, Trailers from Hell, where filmmakers talk about some of their favorite films and watch the trailers. Dan Ireland's on a bunch of those. It's the late Natasha Richardson's birthday, Tim Blake Nelson's birthday, Greg Dooley from the Afghan Whigs, and the late Corey Monteith. Strange birthdays on this day, May 11th, my friends. And there you have it. We made it. It's all right. We can get through all this in a fear-free fashion. I don't think we necessarily want to think that we're just wallowing in the bad. But the bad is part of what all goes on. And we got to shine some sunlight on it and expose it. That's your Holy Hexes edition of your Morning Monarchy, my friends. And again, we are streaming live on our own new stream. I'm super stoked. You can find those links at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. So now, in less than a week, on May 17th, Mixlr is basically dropping the paywall. That's the platform that we've been using to do our live broadcasts for these last year and a half. Now, I don't blame them for dropping the paywall. We're all actually kind of surprised they made a free, non-advertising service available as long as they did. But that's coming to an end, and I'm excited for new adventures. I probably would have gone along to get along and just kept on Mixlr. But the fact that they are dropping the paywall made me do the work behind the scenes, and of course, with the help of you, to set up our own stream, and it is streaming live. Hey, and I think there's maybe even a record amount of people on there right now. That's so awesome. So stoked about it, my friends. And we can only do all this with your support. MediaMonarchy.com/support. Like we say on the end of the latest New World Next Week episode, which, like I said, just went up a couple of hours ago. New York City tech to track the homeless. We also talk about Silk Road and arresting Bitcoin users. As we note at the end of that episode, we accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And Patreon, PayPal, Post Office Box, all that. We are brought to you by you, my friends. We are building the media for ourselves. and we're cutting the cords, and we're unfollowing, and we're stopping to use all the services that we know don't serve us. And hopefully we're doing it in a fear-free way. And I appreciate you. It's your Holy Hexes edition of your Morning Monarchy for Thursday, May 11th, 2017. I am James Evan Pilato, your host, webmaster, DJ, and so much more from the mighty MediaMonarchy.com kingdom. Thanking you for listening from the bottom of my heart, my friends, and reminding you, as always, don't hate the media, become the media. Take care.
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato. Since 2005, Media Monarchy has covered the real news about politics, health, technology and the occult. all remixed with music and media that matters. Go to MediaMonarchy.com/support and become a monthly subscriber so you can help keep independent, non-commercial, alternative media going and growing. Thanks.